Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're decoding one of the most breathtaking, pristine archaeological marvels on the planet. I'm talking about Machu Picchu. High up in the southern Peruvian Andes sits this 600-year-old architectural masterpiece, and it remains almost entirely intact. Over 1 million people visit these vast ruins every year, stepping into a world that feels, well, almost frozen in time. But behind those stunning, postcard-perfect views lies a massive puzzle. How exactly did this city come to be? And honestly, more importantly, how has it survived this long?
Okay, let's dive right into this. The sheer survival of Machu Picchu really comes down to two fascinating factors. First off, it completely dodged the Spanish conquistadors. Because the invaders never actually found this remote mountain sanctuary, it was never looted for its gold and silver, and its stones weren't dismantled. But while hiding from the Spanish saved it from human destruction, its survival against the relentless destructive forces of nature, that is nothing short of an engineering miracle.
To really wrap your head around this scale of this miracle, consider the numbers here. We are looking at a massive 32,500 hectares, perched precariously at an elevation of 2,430 meters. Built under the reign of Emperor Pachacuti in the 15th century, the city was strategically placed exactly where the towering Andes mountain range meets the edge of the lush Amazon rainforest. And this was brilliant because it allowed the Inca to bridge two entirely different ecosystems, funneling exotic goods, medicinal plants, and essential crops straight into the heart of their empire.
Now, this strategic location fed directly into their incredibly deliberate urban planning. The Inca didn't just build a city, they essentially built a physical representation of their entire worldview. Archaeologists note that the city is actually divided into distinct zones. You have the upper half, known as Hanan, which housed the elite and the monumental religious structures. Then you have the lower half, Hurin, which was the working class and residential sector. And this wasn't just about class. It reflected the deeply held Andean philosophy of dualism, the idea that two contrasting halves simply must exist together to create ultimate balance and harmony in the universe.
Section 1. Engineering the impossible slopes.
So the Inca were facing some massive geographical threats up there. And the biggest threat? Actually, it wasn't invading armies, it was water. This area receives a staggering 2,000 millimeters of rain annually, and that's mostly concentrated in just a 6-month window. For a city built on a steep, sheer mountain slope, that much water poses a continuous, literal, existential threat of catastrophic landslides. I mean, one bad rainy season could have sent the entire city washing straight down into the valley below. And this brilliantly illustrates their solution, an ingenious underground drainage system. What looks like simple farming steps on the outside is actually incredibly advanced engineering. The Inca built these agricultural terraces with 4 distinct layers. They'd start with these massive bottom stones, top them with smaller gravel and boulders, then add a layer of sand, and finally finish the whole thing off with rich topsoil. This ingenious layering safely drained a whopping 13,000 liters of water per hectare every single year. When the heavy rains hit, the water didn't just pool up and wash away the soil. It safely filtered down through the sand and rocks and naturally flowed out of the city. In fact, to put that into perspective, researchers estimate that creating these hidden terraces consumed more than half of the total labor required to build Machu Picchu. Over 50% of their effort was buried completely underground just to keep the city from washing away.
Section 2. The art of Inca stonecraft.
The monumental architecture of Machu Picchu is honestly mind-boggling, especially when you remember it was built entirely without iron tools, without wheels, and without drafted blueprints. So how did they actually pull it off? Well, instead of paying taxes with money, imagine paying them by dragging massive granite stones up a mountain. That was the Midas system. It relied on sheer human power organized as a temporary labor tax. Citizens of the empire provided a month or 2 of manual labor every single year. This massive rotating workforce allowed the Inca to quarry heavy granite right there on the mountain, dragging the stones into place using ramps, ropes, and log rollers. Once those stones were roughly in place, the craftsmanship became meticulous. To get the stones to fit together without any gaps, they used this painstaking trial and error technique. They would place a stone over a fine layer of sand on the block right below it. Then they'd lift a stone up and check the marks left in the sand to see exactly where it wasn't sitting perfectly flush. They would chisel away those exact spots, lower it back down, and repeat that process over and over until it was completely flawless. Experts have literally compared the precision of this curved, 3D stone shaping to Michelangelo carving his sculptures.
The final result of this exhausting process is the legendary ashlar walls. While standard houses down in the lower sector used basic mud mortar, the most important religious and elite buildings, like the Temple of the Three Windows, used these perfectly interlocking granite blocks. Because they fit together so snugly without any rigid mortar holding them in place, the stones can actually dance and shift during an earthquake, and then just settle right back into their original places. That right there is absolutely crucial to why they are still standing today.
Section 3. Water Systems and Celestial Myths.
Now, what's really interesting here is that the Inca weren't just masters of stone, they were absolute masters of their environment. The sheer precision of their water supply was staggering. They harnessed a natural spring on the mountain and engineered a 749-meter-long canal with a mathematically precise 2 to 5% slope. This controlled the water speed perfectly, guiding it effortlessly through 16 interconnected fountains. And it flowed hierarchically, starting up at the emperor's quarters, where the water was at its absolute purest, and trickling all the way down to the Temple of the Condor. They manipulated the flow so expertly that it provided a steady 25 to 125 liters per minute year-round. But, while their water systems were remarkably exact, their astronomical structures kind of need a reality check. The popular myth is that buildings like the Sun Temple and the Intihuatana Stone were these laser-precise astronomical observatories used for complex daily science. But reality tells a slightly different story. Polish researchers modeled the site and found that, yes, the sun does align with certain windows during the solstice, but it's actually not that precise. To use one window perfectly, you'd literally have to lie completely flat on the floor at a height of just 40 centimeters. It's a pretty absurd requirement for an exact scientific observatory, right? So they proved these were highly important ceremonial structures meant to mark seasonal rituals and celebrate the calendar, rather than exact telescopes. Section 4. Rewriting the Inca Timeline. And this brings us to a massive paradigm shift in how we understand this entire civilization. For a long time, we thought we had the exact timeline of Machu Picchu nailed down. Because the Incas had no written language, relying instead on those knotted ropes called quipus to record data, historians traditionally had to rely on documents written by the Spanish long after the conquest. Based on these secondary, often flawed oral histories, the widely accepted timeline stated that Emperor Pachacuti began his conquests and the building of Machu Picchu sometime between 1438 and 1450. But modern archaeologists, they weren't exactly satisfied with Spanish guesswork, so they went digging into the deepest, earliest foundations of Machu Picchu. They found organic materials trapped in the very first floors constructed by the original builders. We're talking things like original Inca ropes, woven textiles, and ancient corn. By running these organic remnants through advanced carbon-14 dating, they were able to extract the exact dates these materials were last alive. So the crucial point is the result. Carbon-14 dating definitively revealed that construction was actually well underway by the year 1420. That is decades older than the history books claimed. This paradigm shift proves that Emperor Pachacuti's rise to power, his massive empire, and the magnificent city of Machu Picchu itself are older and lasted significantly longer than we ever gave them credit for. It really forces us to ask, what else did the history books get wrong? If advanced carbon dating can rewrite the origins of one of the world's most famous monuments just like that, what other secrets are still buried beneath the stones of this 600-year-old masterpiece? The silent engineers of the Andes didn't leave us a written manual, but their stones, their terraces, and their surviving legacies still have so much left to teach us. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember, keep questioning the history around you.